Welcome back to Direct Edition, a podcast about nothing and everything. And today I am bringing you an interview I am super excited to share. I know that is something that I say often, but this is what I love, and I want you to enjoy this too. Jim Ward, a founding member of At the Drive-In, the lead singer and founding member of Sparta, an El Pasoan through and through, and just a really great guy who's been in the music scene for 3 decades now. And I just had a great time talking to him. A little bit of clarity, like I don't know Jim personally, not like I know Kevin or Evan or any of the other closer friend interviews that I've had on here, but I reached out to him and it was definitely worth taking that shot. We're going to talk about a varied amount of things. You're going to find links in the description below to kind of coincide with certain things like the band Sparta, his Patreon, Dynalone Records, where you can buy whatever's left that they have inventory of the Sparta records. And I made a little Spotify mix that'll go in the descriptions of everything that you can listen to some of the songs that we talked about that Jim has written. I won't make you wait too long, but I will say if you're not subscribed to the podcast, please do, because this is my goal going forward, is to get great artists, whether they're musicians, they're actors, they're actresses, or comic book artists or illustrators, whatever, and talk to them and enjoy sharing conversations with you as well as having a good time myself. So here comes my conversation with El Paso's loving son, Jim Ward. Our 1-year anniversary of the podcast, Direct Edition. Somebody whose music I've been listening to for 20 plus years, founding member of At the Drive-In, founding member and lead singer of Sparta, Sleepercar, solo albums. Not just that, a small business owner in Eloise, a restaurant and bar down in El Paso, as well as a podcaster and the unabashed representative of El Paso, Texas, Jim Ward.
Yeah, that's the greatest introduction I've ever had.
Well, it's nice to lay out somebody's resume and then start talking
Yeah.
about it,
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. And that is everything that you just said is why my life is so frantic that it took me 10 minutes to get on this that was planned 10 minutes ago. So sorry about that. Thanks for being flexible.
It's okay. Look, hey, even one podcast host to another, some days getting set up's the hardest thing.
Yeah. I do it in such a half-ass way that it's really not much of a problem, since my favorite ones are the ones where we go and film with people, and then it just becomes this whole other experience. And there's so many people that obviously people don't see on the, like camera and lights and audio, and all my friends that do this honestly out of the kindness of their heart for fun. Nobody makes a dime.
Same here.
Just the story of my life. Yeah. It's all good.
But I mean, and it's one of the things that I love about you is like you do things for the straight out love of just doing them. And that passion shows and goes all the way back to, your first musical output to now. And
yeah, I think I've been lucky in the fact, or fortunate in the fact, that I've never been successful enough for that trap to sort of happen. And I've been successful enough that it allows me to just kind of keep going. So it's sort of become this like almost self-sustaining adventure in life. The ups and downs are extreme sometimes.
Sure.
But I kind of always managed to get through, and I always refer to myself as like a blue collar musician. Like I play to work, to live, to work, to live. Like, and I do have friends that are, whose great grandchildren will probably be incredibly wealthy because they've done so well in life. Mm-hmm. And I don't think our lives are that much different, to be honest with you. So it's all good.
Yeah, I mean, we all got to get out of bed every day, and that's typically the hardest part.
True. Gets harder, doesn't it?
Yeah, oh God, it does. I mean, bags under my eyes aren't getting any better. So I want to take it back to the early influences, and I know there's two paths of songs that you've talked about that really influenced you big time, and the Subhumans Cradle to the Grave is one. But as
Yeah.
a Long Island native, I want to talk
Mhm.
about how you fell into loving Scenes from an Italian Restaurant by Billy
So
Joel.
yeah, so kind of when I was a kid, I grew up a block away from this park called Memorial Park, which is like a big thing for me. I've written about it. I
Hmm.
still go back to this day. We're announcing a thing in a couple of days that has like I went and filmed there, and it was great. It's kind of my place that I go back to. Anyways, I digress. So in El Paso, rainy days are rare,
Hmm.
but because we have a mountain, rainy days are pretty dangerous because of flash floods
Yeah.
and just the way that our geography works. So if it rained hard, we would sort of be stuck inside. And
Hmm.
on those days, my parents would try and my parents would kind of ping pong between work and college when we were growing up. So sort of one parent was kind of all around, always around. When we were kids, when me and my sisters were kids, but we would listen to records. So we would sort
Hmm.
of dig into my parents' record collection, and my parents didn't have an extensive collection. I'd say maybe 40 albums or 30 albums or something like that. There's like my dad's favorite band in the world is Steely Dan, so there's like a shit ton of Steely Dan.
Hmm.
My sister's actually named Ricky after the song "Ricky Don't Lose That Number."
Amazing.
Um, there's like the Beatles and sort of my parents were born in 49, so they're kind of that generation, they're baby
Hmm.
boomers. And I don't know who was into Billy Joel, but there was like 4 Billy Joel records in the collection, and for some reason I would gravitate so hard to those records. Um, and I've always said if you could take The Stranger and Piano Man and um, well, see, I always say that and then I start correcting myself immediately. Like I don't really have favorites, like
Yeah.
if I'm forced to choose, like I will say Scenes from Italian Restaurant specifically because as a kid I imagined all of those things that he's talking about. I
Hmm.
imagined uh, you know, them being in even I was like probably 8 or 9 and I would imagine what I could imagine, which was like a bottle of wine in a restaurant or like
Yeah.
whatever. I had never been to New York, like I had never really been anywhere. And then as I grew up, that song started evolving, right? So now I can picture, the kids going to the prom and being the steady couple. And then, as you grow, you can start to picture them falling apart and stress
Hmm.
from work and the marriage falling apart. And like, it's this beautiful trilogy. And it's such a rare thing in a popular composition, right? To have like a trilogy.
Yeah.
And I would go on to rip that off hard in The Most Vicious Crime, which is my version of a trilogy.
Great
It's a
song.
long song. It's taking essentially three elements and sort of manipulating them in three different ways: a very quiet one, the very loud one, the very quiet one at the end. And it's not that I would ever put myself in the ballpark of Billy Joel's ability to write a song, but I can be inspired by it.
Of course.
And I think it's just such good fucking writing, like not just musically but lyrically, and
Storyteller.
yeah, storytelling. And it's just something that I've been interested in since I was a kid. And I think I left this city on tour because I wanted to leave the city and go see the world.
Hmm.
um, and that's all because of my whole they say every decision you've ever made in your life led you to right this moment, right?
Yeah.
So when I was 17 and I decided not to go to college, part of that was Billy Joel, right? Part of that was, Nirvana. Part of that was Green Day. A lot of it was Discord Records. A lot of it was Subhumans. But all of those things kind of fit in to what I wanted to do. Like, I wasn't an angry kid. I wasn't trying to destroy the fucking world. I was trying to tell a story and be part of something that would take me somewhere. Just for
You
my sheer entertainment, nothing else. Like that's why fame and fortune has never been something I ever gave a shit about. I was just trying to get somewhere.
It's amazing. That question just answered so much about what led me to
I
this
talk a lot.
moment though. But seriously, like, growing up on Long Island, you're instilled with Billy. Like it's just part of the culture there. But I took to
Sure.
it too because I think my parents would talk about like Say Goodbye to Hollywood was a song I was singing in 5. And
Yeah.
and you're saying about Most Vicious Crime, that's actually my favorite track on Threes, and it always has been.
Oh,
And
awesome.
Yeah, and
That was like a hard, and not to go to that song for a second, that was like a
Mhm,
hard pitch to the band because we're
mhm.
a democracy at this point. Um, it's a hard pitch to those guys to convince them to let me work through what I was trying to get to, because I
Mhm.
saw it clearly from the day one. I saw where it was going to be. Trying to convince people of that, where you're jamming on something for 10 minutes and they're like, I don't really see where this is going, and I'm like, just wait, just wait,
Yeah.
just wait. There's like, I don't know if I ever convinced them, but I at least got my way and got it on the record. And I think it's really nice. What I'm saying is, it's really nice to hear somebody that appreciates it, because I really did. That's one song in my memory that I fought so hard for to get to come to fruition.
I appreciate, and one of the other things about Cradle to the Grave and Scenes from Italian Restaurant, like long songs, and for a punk
Yeah,
band, or whatever, alt punk, whatever Sparta is considered. I don't know. I just think of it as Sparta.
yeah,
Um,
fair.
some of the six, and like you have an 8-minute song on Porcelain, and like
Mhm.
I appreciate that, and it kind of makes me think that like your storytelling abilities, I can see where they come from now that we're talking about these songs.
Yeah,
And sometimes to tell a story you need more than 3.5 minutes.
and it is like, if you go from now to never, like that's an ambitious undertaking, right?
Hmm.
Like, that's telling a whole story of something. I mean, I write really cryptically, so it wouldn't be easy to like read the lyrics and say like,
Right.
oh, this is the evolution of whatever I was thinking at the time. But when I go, 'cause we're doing the Porcelain 20th stuff right now, so going back and learning those songs, and then I'm not one to go back and listen to my own stuff very often.
Sure.
So we're doing something like this, and I have to like sort of deep dive and relearn. And like, as a three piece now, I'm learning how to play multiple guitar parts or making
Hmm.
decisions and stuff like that. And backups are totally different. And the end of From Now to Never, we used to tour with a piano, right? So I would
Right.
play the whole outro on piano. We're not touring with a piano anymore. So to go back and listen to them, and then think this was really three songs, right?
Hmm.
Same with, this could be broken up into three separate songs. And again, like, I'm grateful for the guys that I play with being open to the fact that you know, like, bear with me. This is one song and it's 8 minutes, and it's gonna drive you crazy. It will never be on the radio. It will never be
Yeah.
popular. It will never, like, um, but also I wanna add this woman speaking French in the middle of it, and they're like,
Mhm.
okay, like, but there's a point to it. Like, it's all it's like a sonic. I don't know what she's saying. You know what I mean? Like, I told
Me
her what
neither.
to say at the time, but I don't remember what it is. I mean, I think it's based on the lyrics, but
Mhm.
it was all about, I want it to sound so sensual right now. And to me, the idea of this woman on this microphone speaking French, it could
While
not be
playing
more
piano.
sensual, right?
Yeah.
How could it be any sexier than that? And like, Sparta's not a sexy band, right?
No,
So
not at
how do we
all.
get to do it? How do we get to do it? And then, I'm just grateful that the people I play with were like, okay, if you want to do that.
I mean, I remember hearing, and that album was the first album that I bought when it came out of Sparta. I was late on it, and I didn't get Wiretap Scars when it came out, but Porcelain, I remember, I'm a headphone guy. I love listening to music, like that. And I remember that, and I was like, man, this is not what I expected, but I love it. And
Oh, good. Good to hear.
yeah, yeah. And I sonically, that album is I can't even think of anything that I would put it in, in the same category of that time.
Yeah, there was a really fortunate situation in a weird way, because we had made Wiretap with Jerry Finn, and then when we went to make Porcelain, we had he's so incredible, that we wanted obviously to make the second record with him, and
Mhm,
our schedules just could not line up. Like, we tried really
mhm,
hard and it didn't line up. And so we went to like our next person, which was Mike Major, who is from El Paso, and we recorded. I mean, the first person I ever recorded with in my life when I was 17 was Mike. He's the one that kind of taught us the etiquette. I've talked a lot about that in other
mhm.
platforms. Um, so I think for him to make a major label record at Sunset Sound in Hollywood with a, whatever, $500,000 budget or whatever it was, like some massive budget, he was like, you couldn't have found anybody who had more to prove and was more concerned with how every single fucking millisecond sounded. I mean, we brought in, a string arranger that had worked with Bjork, and we had like a full
Wow.
string. We had strings in the studio, and we're I remember literally watching the clock because, you pay for 3 hours
Sure.
at a time. So if you go 3 hours, 2 minutes, you pay for 6 hours. And this is like, rightfully so, these people are expensive.
Sure.
And you take a 5-person string section and you double it or triple it so that it sounds huge, which it does on the record. And she's an amazing arranger. And you start hearing your stuff in a way that you can't even imagine ever. Like, I wrote this, you know what I mean? Like, we're all sitting looking at each other like, we wrote this, and she's like, yeah, this is just me taking what you wrote and arranging it for strip. And
Right.
we're like, holy shit, we're amazing. Like, this sounds incredible. But there's a part of me, the part of me that's looking at the clock that's like, you got this is like early Pro Tools days.
Sure.
So we're recording a bunch on tape. We record some on Pro Tools just for, we do vocals on Pro Tools, so we're not wearing out the tape because I'm not the greatest singer in the world and I got to sing it 50 times and I don't use auto-tune, so I will sing it 50 times. So we do the strings on Pro Tools and the computer crashes at like 2 hours, 48 minutes. So we're just like all watching the fucking spinny thing on the screen, and like the poor guy, Justin, who's like assisting and on Pro Tools is just sweating bullets. It was a moment. It's something I'll never forget because, I'm not an LA session guy. Like, I'm not used to this stuff. I don't know. Everybody in the room was cool as a cucumber, right? Except for us. So we're just like,
just a bunch of
we got it.
Exits.
Yeah. It was just such a good opportunity. I feel so fortunate that we got to be at that studio, and there's like a famous basketball hoop there, and just like playing basketball during the day and meeting other bands, and it was great. It was super good time.
I bet. And it's funny you say that. It just, the first thing I thought of when you said how much the orchestra is, I'm like, I wonder how much it costs for November Rain to get recorded.
more than any of us will ever have.
Yeah, that song might be one of maybe the most expensive songs in history if you factor the video in as well.
Oh, come on. Can you imagine?
7.5 minutes and
no, full orchestra, right?
Yeah. And then Axel.
Yeah,
you got to deal with that.
My gosh. But kind of worth it, right? Because a song.
Yeah, that song will outlive all of us,
Yeah, for sure.
So going back, you start at the drive-in with Cedric at 17. Is that how old
17.
you were when you started?
Yeah, I was 17. Yeah.
That's wild to think. Do you remember, even going a little bit further, like the first time that you played a show where kids went off? Because I never got to see at the drive-in with you guys as the original lineup. But I know so many friends that went to see them, and I'm like, this band had crowds going as crazy as they were going. Do you remember?
Yeah, we were pretty notorious for trying to keep the crowd in check.
Yeah.
So it would be a constant kind of like tug and pull kind of thing. And it was one thing when you're playing within our community, like let's say, it's really like In Casino Out is when things started. We started selling records and people started coming to shows more than just because they went to shows. So it's people were coming knowing the music to some degree. We toured all the time. This is like when we started touring with like the Murder City Devils a lot, and we kind of established our reputation as a live band, and people were coming to see what people were talking about, that sort of thing. And we were playing anywhere and everywhere we could, no matter what. There's a show that I remember distinctly because it just felt, for me, it was like the first, and I'm sure we had sold out stuff before, but we played the Grog Shop, the original Grog Shop.
Oh, wow.
In Cleveland Heights before it moved. And this woman, Kathy, is the owner and has been forever. And she was so kind to us. And, she just had a different vibe than everywhere else. She's just like, I don't know, nurturing and nice and kind. And still to this day, we still play there. And I love seeing her. It's kind of one of my favorite days on tour to see her and just say hi. And I don't think she'll ever know how important she is to me in my career, because she was kind of, out of all the thousands of people that have settled at the end of the night and put us up and everything else, like, she's one that really stands out as somebody that was just kind. And I don't know how to explain why that sticks in my mind so much, but it just seems so genuine, I think.
Yeah.
She just seems like, anyways. So we played the original one, and I remember it being sold, probably oversold. And, there's like it seemed like there was just kids on top of kids on top of kids, and you know, we were in our heyday of just being like that small 200 cap 300 cap room, just
Sure.
shit hot band, just owning the stage every night. It was just like a good time for the band,
Yeah.
and
Sweating
you know,
everywhere.
nothing had gotten weird yet. Like we had no outside pressures.
Hmm.
We're just enjoying being in a band and actually making enough money to get to the next city. We're probably not even making enough to pay any sort of bills or anything, but that's the show I remember. And this is probably like in 90, probably like 98 ish.
Right.
That's the first time I remember just like feeling like we had maxed out. Like this,
Hmm.
it's not going to get any better than this. This is amazing, right? To be on stage and to be selling t-shirts and to like having people sing along, all of that stuff is kind of like the first times those things happen before you get jaded, which you just naturally do.
Of
Um,
course.
yeah, I just remember that original Grog Shop, Cleveland Heights, just being, I don't know when it was. Probably 98, maybe 99 at the latest.
And I'm sure you played Long Island a lot. But when I moved out here to the Northwest, I had a lot of friends tell me like they used to see you guys at the fire station or the firehouse or something. And yeah,
Yeah.
and people would talk about those shows. And I my and I wonder like because for me, I don't know what everybody's experience with at the drive-in, but my experience was seeing One Arm Scissor on MTV2 and being like, did I just see another Rage Against the like to me it was like seeing the second coming of Rage Against the Machine, and my mind was blown. It was the first time that I had ever I'm a lyric guy, so I love lyrics, but it was the first time that music made me feel like, oh my god, this is a political movement, like this is like a revolutionary thing. Was was the video for One Arm Scissor what kind of put everything on the path that it was for that next year, or was it Conan or Letterman? Do you remember
So
what's the point?
I think so. If you go back to like the late 90s, if you're on an indie, any indie, J
Hmm.
Tree, Sub Pop, whatever, if you're on anything and you sell 10,000 records, that was like the mark
Yeah.
where majors started sniffing around. So that means you're on the radar of like A&R guys, assistants who are going to shows. And, you know, we ended up started taking meetings that year to sort of see what we wanted to do. It's a hard thing for a band at this time, right? Because this is still when you could sell out. This
Yeah.
is still when you would have backlash. This is like shit like this killed Jawbreaker. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like going to a major literally killed their band.
Death
Um,
Cab almost.
yeah. So we were on that cusp of that, and I think that guided us really to where we ended up. So we signed to a place called Den,
Hmm.
um, which then folded because it was a internet startup. Essentially, it was like the beginning of streaming before anyone.
Yeah.
I didn't understand it at all. It was called Digital Entertainment Network, so I didn't understand any of that. And we ended up getting folded into Grand Royal, which was
Hmm.
again the most fortunate thing because you're on a major, but it's cool, right?
Yeah.
So you have we were part of the Virgin family, which if we had just signed a Virgin would have been probably worse for our fan base. But the fact that we signed a Grand Royal and nobody really gave a shit that Grand Royal was distributed by Virgin or however that works, I don't even know how it worked. But
You just saw Beastie Boys. That's what we saw.
exactly, yeah. And they had such cool bands around them. It's like we became part of this family of like it was legitimate and it was cool and it wasn't, you know, I think even though we got some backlash, it wasn't what it could have been.
Hmm.
Um, but we, you know, in Southern California, we were playing "This Ain't No Picnic," which is the precursor to Coachella. We ended up playing. We were the very first band to ever play Coachella. I'm pretty sure about this fact.
Oh
So I think
shit.
when the gates opened, that first Coachella, we played first. I think on the side stage. I can't be
Amazing.
pretty sure that either way, pretty close to that. And we left our guitars out, and all the pick guards warped because it was so hot.
Because it was like 95 degrees, I bet.
It was like probably more than that. It was insane, and we didn't know that you had to put your guitars away. Like we're green, you know.
Yeah.
But so my point is, there's all these little things happening. We had gone out with Rage for a couple of weeks.
Hmm.
We had done like a couple of weeks with Get Up Kids at like the height of their stuff. So we're playing 1,000 people a night. We make the One Arm Scissor video. We make that record. You know, people like K Rock are picking up on it. All of that stuff is little tiny pieces of the
Right.
puzzle. But more than anything, I think the video allowed people that had never seen our band to understand us. And we didn't make it with a director. That's
Right.
all that's all our footage
Mhm.
basically, or footage from friends. Like the Cal State show, which is like the 16 millimeter stuff. I don't know where it came from, but all of those, that was the label made that video, and then we saw it and we're like, this is bullshit the way you made it. It's just all Cedric, and like we're not comfortable with that because we're a band. So then the
Mhm.
other guy, I don't remember who did it. Somebody in the band went back and recut the video, and it was
Oh, wow.
essentially the same video, but it needed to be us saying this is how we want to be
Sure.
represented. It was still all Cedric, right? But I mean, it was us saying this is how we want to be represented. And that stuff's important because we were, again, at that time, a democracy, and you're trying to figure out how to navigate all of this like new attention and weird stuff. And it's really hard to
Yeah, I
do,
bet.
um, especially when you're like 22, 23 years old and, having a very good time. So all that shit gets a little clouded.
Yeah.
So, so I think all of that stuff, and MTV2 picking it up, I think that was like the most played video of the year on MTV2, and it didn't come out till August. So if you think in 6 months it was played more than anything else all year, all that stuff was just little pieces of the pie and the puzzle, and it all worked to accelerate the growth of the band really quickly. And
Mhm.
I don't know if people ever look at the math, but that record came out in September of 2000, and we ended in basically the end of February
Yeah.
2001. So like a 5-month run essentially. So we existed in that world for 5 months, and the projection of what it would have been, no one will ever know. But that's kind of like cemented the band as like, even though it's come and gone over the years,
Sure.
the fact that we left when we did makes it so mysterious, and really no one will ever know.
I and because it was 2000, the internet was a little baby. So, for somebody like me, I'm like, who are these guys? What are these guys? And
Yeah, I miss
unfortunately,
that.
yeah, I mean, that the record industry died soon after, but unfortunately for me, just for the record, I should have seen you guys open up for Rage Against the Machine at Nassau Coliseum, but I didn't know who you were, and we were walking around the concourse talking to friends,
Yeah.
being idiots, ignoring the opening band, which 25 years later, I'll never ever ignore an opening band again.
Oh, good. At least we got that.
Yeah,
At least we put that in your head. It's funny because
seriously.
you're wearing a Pearl Jam shirt, and that's one of those tours where Sparta went out with Pearl Jam,
Yep.
and we had that same fight every night because Pearl Jam fans are like Rage fans, which is like they're there to see Pearl Jam.
Mhm.
And I've seen them a couple of times in the last year, and that's kind of evolved a little bit because I
Sure.
think the fans are now 20 years older, and people are like, I'm not going to really party. I'm going to go and sit down and watch the opening band or whatever. But at the time, 20 plus years ago, when we were opening, it would be completely empty on the floor while we played. And we
Mhm.
made so many fans in the round. This happened on the Rage tour too,
Right
right?
here.
So
Right here.
so people were learning about us just from sitting in those seats. But to us, we're playing to almost nobody. And
Mhm.
and one night, Eddie said, "Hey, do you mind if I go out and sing a song first?" Obviously,
Yeah.
of course, that would be amazing. So he went out and played an acoustic song, and you could see the people streaming down the stairs fill up the bottom. And I was like, "Fuck yes! Finally, we're gonna play to like this really pumped up, amazing crowd." And when he finished, they all went back up.
They'll
It was like,
well,
yeah,
ugh,
humility, just
yeah,
done.
seriously.
Yeah,
And jumping into that, keeping in line with Nassau Coliseum, so 2003, the Riot Act tour was the first time I'd
yeah,
seen you guys live. That show, cemented me as a Sparta fan, and then I saw you guys with, Incubus at the Garden the following year. So you guys
yeah.
got to play the Garden, but, the legend, did you guys stick around? You guys know about that Nassau Coliseum show that almost, like, ended the band?
Uh, if this is about the firefighter, is it about the
It's
firefighters?
about Bush Leaguer when he came out with the Bush mask, and I
Mhm.
started to learn, "Oh, I gotta get the fuck off Long Island because 'cause I'm surrounded by a bunch of Bush lovers," and I don't
Yeah.
mean that kind of Bush.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. Yeah,
but
no,
that
that's a famous Pearl Jam story in the fact that there was a bunch of, well, I mean, you can tell the story better than I do. I don't really remember
well,
exactly
from
what
our
happened. I just know that there was like a it was like the sort of the Twin Towers backlash is what I
Yeah.
would say. Yeah.
Yeah, and but I it's just strange to me, like, you go to a show of a band like that, or a Rage Against the Machine show, or a Sparta, or at the drive-in, and you think that it's gonna be apolitical. Do you know who you're listening to? Like, and I remember, we were up in the 200 sections, and they started booing, and I'm like, "What
Yeah.
is this?" It you know, it
Yeah.
behooves me.
It's good use of the word behoove. I love it. That's such an underused word.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Wow. Um, yeah, it's something that I have dealt with in my career because I'm probably the most. I was definitely the most political member of any band I've ever been in. Like
Uh-huh.
active wise, outspoken, whatever. And I tend to like only sort of communicate on Instagram now. With that's
Mhm.
kind of my turf or whatever. And I find myself defending conservative fans a lot because I try to make sure that they're allowed to have
Sure.
an equal amount of time and space to say what they need to say or whatever. And it's a hard thing to navigate online. It's an easy thing for me to do it at a show because I can say like, look, we don't have to agree. And I really love the fact that you buy my albums and buy my tickets and come to the shows and put up with me talking about this stuff because I know it's not what you believe in.
Mhm.
But this is also in my opinion, we're talking about the 5% of stuff we don't agree with, right? So that
Yeah.
other 95%, I think we're basically all on the same page. Like it's getting a little weird out there for sure. Where I think there's probably like a reckoning coming for the conservative movement in this country where people are going to have to start really looking at in a mirror and saying like, am I a white supremacist? Am I a fascist? Because it's all been
It's the line
dog
is
whistled for, and now it's getting a little bit more obvious. So I think there's going to be some of that, and I think there's also a lot to be said for the liberal movement in this country.
mhm.
I think the things where we're just like putting a blanket over all of it and saying we're cool with everything, everything is okay, everything like
Right,
it's not,
that's not
and we're gonna have our own reckon. I'm in the middle of that right now, where for the first time I feel like a independent more than I ever have in my life
I
because I
feel
just
like
don't I
that.
don't agree with everything. And I've always said that I'm as like an American, I feel like I'm financially conservative, which means I don't think that we should be spending billions on war machinery if it's not needed. But I'm
Which
very
we have
socially
for
liberal,
years.
so trying to find that sort of balance, whatever, and then trying to just not give up, which is what they want, right? Is
Well,
is
that's the
is just
struggle.
the sheep to shut the fuck up,
Yeah.
and it's hard to not do that because I'm tired of turning on anything and seeing everything. Like I'm just tired of it. I'm fucking sick of it, and makes me just want to go in the studio and make songs and then go on tour and talk about it or not talk about it or whatever. So yeah,
And
it is.
and
It
it's
was a weird night. That I do remember that night. Mostly, I remember the beginning of the night, which was like one of the first times. Like I poked my head into the, or no, I guess we were in our dressing room and Eddie poked his head into our room,
mhm.
and was just like, uh, and I saw him, so I went out because I thought, obviously, is everything cool? Did we do something, or can I help you in any way? You know what I mean? Because like you tour with these guys, you don't really see them very often. It's not like
Sure.
you're building. It's not like indie rock touring where you're in the club for 8 hours together, or you're going
Sharing
out
a
and
dressing
singing
room.
somehow. Yeah, yeah. And we ended up just spending like I don't know 30 or 40 minutes just sitting and talking, and it was kind of like the longest time I spent with him by myself that night. And
Mhm.
I don't know if he was feeling introspective because he thought he knew what was coming that night, but I do remember that night so well.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it's
Yeah,
I can definitely put a bookmark in that, saying, like, me getting off Long Island starts there,
yeah,
and
I could
going as
understand that.
far away from it as I could, and
Yeah,
staying in this country.
yeah,
But what an amazing thing, like, to have them, and then Incubus, and, like, that's, like, the beginning, of, where you guys kinda, like, because Wiretap Scars was out, but Porcelain hadn't been out yet.
yeah. Porcelain came out just as we were doing Incubus. Came out
Yeah.
right, sort of a couple of weeks into that tour, I think maybe.
Yeah, and then, I saw you guys at Irving Plaza, which was an amazing show, which on Porcelain, but your live shows had, like, progressively just gotten better and better, and those crowds, started like, what was there some affirmation and just like feeling great about creating Sparta and then seeing the people kind of just show up for these shows as you guys went on solo, more solo runs?
I wish that I appreciated it more at the time.
Hmm.
I think I was that's like not a great period of my life.
I know.
Like
Yeah.
and I've talked a lot about it, but like sort of the mental health aspect. And it's not I don't want to beat a dead horse with that stuff, but it's real and it was
Sure.
um I will always be grateful that I lived through it because it was I mean it was definitely touch and go for a while, I would say.
Mhm.
Not to make it too dramatic, but I wish that I had enjoyed it more. I wish that I had been kinder to myself in that time period. I wish a lot of things, but again, all of those decisions and all those things led me to where I am.
Hmm.
And if I am honest with myself, and I do say that success and ticket counts and sales and all that are not the most important thing in the world, then it shouldn't matter.
Yeah.
And what matters is that I love what I do, and I still get to do what I do. I'm making a record right now. It's like been one of the most challenging and rewarding records I've ever made. I can't wait for people to hear it just because I'm in the middle of the chemical reaction right now, and
Yeah.
it's pretty wild, and I'm doing stuff that I've never done, and I'm working with people I've never worked with before, and I'm really enjoying it. Um, but it's kind of like I wish there's a part of you, of course, that wishes that you were making that record for that many people and that sort of production level, and like there's a part of you that wishes you could have the best of both worlds, but that's
Sure.
just not reality. Reality is that I have chosen a career that has huge ups and downs, and I've chosen a specific path within that career
Hmm.
that has not been beneficial to long-term success. And that's a choice that I made a long time ago, like in 2008, when I walked away from Sparta the
Hmm.
first time and just said, I can no longer do this way. And, you know, I'm fine with it, but
Yeah.
there is consequences to that. And that is like when you leave for 9 years, so does your fan base. And it is what it is. I don't know if that answers the question.
No, I understand, and like it's two different perspectives. I'm looking at it from literally one side of the stage, and you're looking at it
Yeah.
from on the stage, and I was just happy to see. Like I remember that Irving Plaza show. I forget who you guys played with, but it was just wild in the best way. Like, but I remember when you took you stepped away from Sparta, and understanding mental health. I talk about it a lot on the podcast because I deal with my own riddled with anxiety, and it has crippled me
Hmm.
for most of my life. But I also have had friends that I've lost in the music business that are, it's being on the road. Nobody can understand it unless they've done it, because
Yep.
it's like we all want to be home, but we do this thing that keeps us addicted to being on the road, which comes with
Hmm.
so many things. Because I used to travel for work, and when
Yeah.
COVID hit, I was like, "Oh, so this is what it's like to be home for 2 years." And I was like, "Oh, I like this."
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so I understand, and I'm just glad that, I say it about people that have struggled. I'm glad you're still here, and I'm glad
Yeah.
that you're
Me
still
too.
making
Yeah.
art, you know?
Me too. Thank you for saying that. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've lost a lot of people by their choice, and that's
Yeah.
their choice. And I understand it's not like it's not just an overdose. I mean, that's sort of your choice, but it's hard, and famous people and non-famous people, like
Mhm.
our community deals with a tremendous amount of loss. And
Yeah.
I think it's just honestly, it's just part of the gig,
I think
unfortunately. Like,
you're right.
yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Like you're dealing with a career that is a magnet for people with struggles,
Mhm.
and also those struggles result in art, which creates bigger struggles, and you don't really know how you're going to do that until you do it. So
Yeah, and it's an older tale than both of us. I mean,
yeah,
learning about the 27 Club when we lost Kurt, and I'm like,
yeah,
"Oh man, this is, it's Morrison, it's
it's a
Janis,
thing.
it's
Yeah,
Bill, it's
Hendrix.
Hendrix," and it's like, 'cause we don't develop we're 20, at our 20s, we have no clue what's going on as humans. We
No.
still are trying to figure it out. At
Yeah.
45, and I'm still trying to figure out,
Yeah. I think it's just when they say it's a journey, not a destination, all that's very true.
Yeah, yeah. But it's nice to hear you talking about the mental health aspect, especially because like when it at the drive-in blew up, like the whole thing imploded, and it's like, yeah, I don't ever fancy to experience what it's like to have people pulling me in every direction to do this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
Yeah, it's more brutal than it's more brutal than you understand in the moment, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, we always say for us, the five of us, like nobody will ever understand us except for
Yeah.
us. And I don't even try to explain. I mean, not wives, not kids, not family, not moms, not dads. Like nobody is ever gonna get us except for us.
Right.
You
Right.
know. And we have a particularly complicated relationship. So it's like, it's even for us, it's even more only us than maybe it would be otherwise.
And it almost makes you step back and be like, when you see some of these bands that have been together, the same lineup for 40 years or 30 years, you're like, how? How?
Yeah.
You
It's a
know?
tremendous amount of work.
So I wanted to ask, because you stepped away from Sparta, you released the 3 solo EPs, which became like its album, which I absolutely love. I took that with me to Scotland,
Oh,
and I listened to it a lot my first trip to Scotland. But Sleepercar, I did not think that I would ever be interested in listening to like alt country or just country in general,
yeah.
and that's a family band, technically,
Yeah.
right?
Well, yeah, the recording, my dad played bass on the record.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
played the first sort of handful of shows in El Paso. He's not going to tour, so he got
Mhm.
replaced, which was pretty weird. To fire your dad, even though I think he was fine with it. I've
Yeah.
also always said it was really weird to look out in the crowd and see my mom kind of like googly eyes with my dad. I was like, this is fucking uncomfortable. Like, I do not,
Yeah,
I do
it's
not like
great.
this at all. Yeah, it's so weird. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was really fun. Like I have this story about making that record, and it wasn't even like the finished recording, but we were sort of demoing stuff at Sonic Ranch,
Mhm.
um, and we were out there, just like staying out there and drinking beers and playing music, and this is all just like, me and Heinrich, basically the pedal steel player, and Clint came out and played some drums, and my dad was playing bass, and we sort of tracked basically the rough version of Fences Down. And
Mhm.
I didn't have lyrics. So the way I write vocals and lyrics is like very last thing that I do. So I'm such a sideman, like that's like genetically I'm a sideman. Like I like writing riffs and I like writing songs, but like I'm not great at being the other stuff. So
Yeah.
we had it and I said, all right, give me like 15 minutes. And I grabbed a beer and I went to a different room and I wrote all the lyrics for Fences Down,
Wow.
like top to bottom. And then I came in and sang it, and I came out, um, and my dad was like, "Holy shit, you're good at this!" And it was like, I don't remember exactly what he said, but it was basically like, at this point, have sold millions of records and done tours all over the world and played to millions of all that stuff, and it just felt like the most honest, endearing thing that he had said to me about music, which was he got to see the process and he got to see me sit down and make something out of nothing
Right.
in a few minutes, and it just was like such a nice thing to hear at the time, because you know it was like I was really, this is before I stepped away from Sparta, this is like just
Mhm.
making stuff on the side, but I was definitely looking for a way out at that point.
Sure.
Like I wasn't in a good place and I was trying to find something that brought me joy from music, because I'd sort of lost that by that point,
Mhm.
which is a good time to step away if you're losing
Yeah.
the vibe, like step away so you don't ruin it forever. But yeah, that's like, it was yeah, just like one of my favorite moments with my dad when it came to
That's
that stuff.
great.
He's a good dude, but it was a nice thing to hear. um it's just I put so much value on what he said,
Mhm.
and anybody else could have said it, it would have been one thing, but for him to say it, it just meant a lot to me.
Yeah, it's affirmation that you don't look for, but it's nice when you get it. And I think
Mhm.
that's something I talk about with friends a lot is like, man, it's we don't get it enough. We don't get it enough from our certain figures in our life. And when you get it, it just feels great.
Yeah, that's the
Um,
best.
I would love to tell Dynalone and you to get that record on vinyl at some point because I really would like to own a copy of the
Well,
Sleepercar record, West Texas.
you're going to be happy in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, great,
Just so you know.
great.
Yeah.
um, so, and then I mean, I know we don't have a ton of time, but I want to talk about like your not just your love for El Paso, but being a small business owner for, well, I mean, between all the different things that you've had for what, like almost 2 decades now?
Yeah, our first venue that we were a part of. I do a lot of stuff with Christine. Um,
Right.
the first thing that we did was this place called the Clinic, which
Hmm.
was about six of us put in like $30 a month to rent this like 500 square foot place, and this was like in probably 1998 or so.
Wow.
And we've had like record stores, and we've had 1,500 cap theaters, and we've had
Tricky Falls,
yeah,
right?
we've had huge bars that we sold because they got so huge that we just wanted to get the fuck out and not deal with it anymore. And
Hmm.
again, like if you take our philosophy on music and success and transparency and honesty and humility and all those things that you try to do your best at, it's not great for like financial rewards. Like
Sure.
we've done things that got huge and we walked away from, um, either with something or nothing. It doesn't really matter. But that's not really the point to any of this stuff. So
Hmm.
I treat businesses like record cycles. Like so I we the fun part is like imagining them and
Yeah.
building them and finding a way to fund them and then watching them kind of take off or not, and then moving on to something else. So I always kind of have irons in the fire that nobody knows about or very few
Hmm.
people know about, and some of them come to fruition and some of them don't. I'm really tackling this philosophy of think big, talk small. That's never been my. It's
I
never
love
been my. Yeah, it's never been my thing. I'm such a talker, and I love talking to people about my dreams. And I don't really necessarily care if they come to fruition. And
that.
people
Hmm.
always say like, "Oh, well, you were going to do this, but then you didn't," and like, how lame. And I'm like, I don't care. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so it was an idea and it didn't work out. Like, I do. I think like the thing that I've struggled with as far as businesses go is the theory of fail fast and move
Mm.
on. It's not something I can really commit to. So I can't just have an idea that is based on success, whether it's music or a restaurant or whatever we're doing,
Hmm.
because it's just not the way I'm built. So I'm not built to make something to make money no matter what. I'm built to make something that is exciting to me and fun, and I'm doing with my friends, and is somehow interesting. So that I actually just bought a book about failure because I'm trying to learn how to understand now how to fail, and with humility, and it's part of life. And I think the thing that I've always struggled with, or in the last like 20 years, is that people make these assumptions about you because they see you on MTV or they see you play a big show and they think that
Hmm.
you're, oh, A, you're rich, B, you're successful, C, your life is perfect. You know what I mean? And I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
none of those things are true, but I like that attention, right? I like people thinking that. Of course I do.
Sure.
Like you're saying, affirmation. Like, when you get it from thousands of people, it's a pretty great feeling.
Yeah.
Uh, so now I'm sort of learning. I'm trying to learn how to like navigate failure and
Hmm.
be okay with it because it's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I mean, I mean, right now, this podcast is not a failure, and it's like something that I was like, maybe I can make this work adjacently to this comic book business and channel I have, because I
Mhm.
love talking to people. I'm a Jew from New York. I was born talking, and 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 I don't know how to fail at this. Like, I haven't figured out how to fail. Like, and but what you were saying about, like, think, like, you got to keep dreaming, like you got to keep having ideas, because I think it keeps you somewhat sane in very insane times, and I think
100%.
it keeps you a little bit younger to
Yeah, 100%. I think if you if you one of the great parts about this life, about being a musician and especially a touring musician, and then on top of that, a touring musician who's had enough success to do it for a living, is
Hmm.
that we essentially are 17 forever.
Hmm.
Even, you hang out with Duff McKagan, you're going to hang out with a 17-year-old kid. Like his energy and his outlook on life and his just pure excitement about music. You know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah,
don't know the guy well. I've toured with him and I've hung out with him. And this is why I can say this is a dude that's, years older than I am. And he, looks great, lives great, is super fucking out, like just fun to be around. And like, that's what I want to do forever. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
this is the best life. Like, I'm incredibly fortunate and I'm so grateful that I get to do this, and I get people around me get tired of me saying it because I say it so often. Like
yeah,
I love what I do. Like walking out on a stage, whether there's days there's 5 people there, and it's like a little humbling, right?
sure.
I go out and play solo shows, and I played to like 3 people in Nashville, and it was, one of them was Chris Caraba, which is like, thank you for standing there as my friend when
Yeah,
this, how awkward this feeling is. And he was like, man, how does your voice get better? And I'm like, you're the nicest guy in the world. Like, out of everything that we're both thinking about tonight, that's what you're going to say. But
yeah.
also, like, I'm specifically doing that stuff because I'm trying to get better at something. And the only way to
Hmm.
get better at it is to go out and
Keep
fail
doing it.
every fucking night. Right. So
Hmm.
every night you got to go out and you have to figure out what works and what doesn't. And there's days where that same tour I opened for Thursday on 3 shows, and I was playing to
Yeah.
1,000 people or whatever, and it's like I have to take both of those things and learn from them. And I have to understand that when we were a young band, the first time we would play some cities, there would be the sound person there, or the sound person and the bartender, and maybe 2 people that somebody knew, whatever. We would play to
Hmm.
nobody, and we would put on the same show, and that's how we got the reputation that we got. But what we probably didn't do consciously is that's how we got really fucking good at what we did.
Yeah,
Is we didn't cancel, or I could tell you 1,000 stories of bands I know that were like, drove by the show, there's nobody there, kept driving.
it just kept going.
Bands that sat in a dressing room and said, let's just do 10 minutes now. Let's do 5 songs. Fucking who cares? Like, this isn't worth our time. I've never
Yeah.
been around that, which is fortunate for me. I was around guys that were like, we're gonna play in New York City to nobody? Fuck yeah.
Mhm.
Let's go burn up all this energy that we have. Let's get better than we were yesterday. We used to go to practice spaces on tour and practice on days off.
Oh, wow.
Like, this
Yeah.
true stories. And bands around us would be like, "What are you doing?" And we're like, "We want to play these songs that we haven't finished, or whatever it is. Like, we want to get better. Like, because we love this, not because we're trying to get famous or not because we're trying to
Mhm.
get rich, because we actually fucking love what we do." And that still to this day hasn't changed. Like, I was in my little vocal booth at my house last night singing my ass off on, just trying to make something that didn't sound like something I've ever done before. And it's such a good feeling.
And at the end of the day, when you're making something that's gonna be given to someone else, gonna be consumed by someone else, like, just have fun doing it. And it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't matter. Who gives a shit if I mean, I started this I don't know how many people watch my podcast. I mean, I know how many subscribers, but I don't give a shit because
Yeah.
I wanna do this, and I wanna have these conversations, and,
Yeah.
you can tell when a band isn't there,
Oh,
even when they
absolutely.
are there,
Absolutely.
you know?
Yeah.
Um, I did wanna say if you ever decide to start roasting coffee again, because that Templo Rosso, I actually went to Eloise. The last time I was in El Paso was maybe like, I don't know, like 10 years ago, and
Uh-huh.
I bought a bag of coffee from you.
Oh, nice. Yeah. We still to this day have the same coffee. I don't know why we're not selling it online, but yeah, you can still buy bags at the restaurant, and it's the same blend. And my boy Chad has been roasting it since day one. And I've gotten to watch his company grow. Um, Talk about somebody who just loves what they do.
Mhm.
So shout out to Chad. Picacho, everybody look up Picacho coffee roasters and
I'll put
order
the link in the
online.
description.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Order some of his coffee. He's just a great human being. He's a jazz trumpetist as well.
oh, wow.
Trumpeter. I don't know how
True.
you say it, but yeah, he actually played. I have a
He's not a
song.
trumper.
Yeah, he's not a trumper for sure. There's a song I have called Lake Travis. That's an instrumental that has this beautiful trumpet on it. That's
Mhm.
him. Yeah. So small community. We all help each other out and do fun stuff together. And yeah.
Yeah, I got to get back down there because the last time I was there, I explored some of the record stores, some of the comic stores. There was a record store in a storage container shopping
Yeah.
center.
Yeah.
That place
Yeah.
was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I love this city because it's, we're still a bit of a frontier and we're still kind of a
Mhm,
port city, and it's still like people got to do stuff for the most part because they love doing it. And there's like a
mhm.
real sort of authenticity and humbleness to it. Success is fleeting in this town, to say the least.
Sure.
So, I just props to all my fellow El Pasoans. Yeah.
And lastly, I want to talk about your career as a fellow podcaster.
Yeah.
You started during
I
the
wouldn't call it a
pandemic.
career, but yeah.
Well, okay, your endeavor.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
Started during the pandemic with Friday Beers, and thank you from the bottom of my heart for giving me something to look forward to, in
Oh,
a
that's
time
awesome.
where
Thank you for saying
there
that.
wasn't. Yeah. And then
Yeah,
it
thank
turned
you.
into Let's Get a Drink with Jim, but now it's better. Is it Better Friends and Heroes or Better Heroes and Friends? Better
It's basically Better Heroes
Better
is
Heroes.
the yeah. So we there's like a lot of Better Heroes things. So I think they try to put some spin on it so it's somewhat different. But yeah. My buddy Jay and I just talking to people, and yeah, it's been cool. Again, like I treat all this stuff like it comes and goes. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
it's I sort of got this advice a long time ago from a friend that owns a studio, and I was like, man, I was just bitching about something like, oh, I'm fucking done with this, I'm never going to do it again. And he's like, don't stop anything, because
Yeah.
in your career you're going to need everything to stay something for as long as it can, because this is not an easy career. And so I sort of took that to heed and was like, when I stepped away from Sparta, I didn't end Sparta. I just said I need a break.
Mhm.
Sleepercar's on a break. Everything's on a break to me if it's not happening. Like nothing is ended forever. I
Right.
never say never anymore. Like, oh, are you going to do this? I never ever say never, because you know
You don't
making
know.
plans just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So I love seeing where this is going to go, and I'm sort of more interested now in taking like a maybe like a more professional approach to it. And I
Mhm.
have again been fortunate enough that because of stuff that I've been a part of, and hopefully people see the stuff that I've done talking with people and find it interesting, that hopefully I can make something grow out of that.
Yeah.
But like I'm so interested now in getting in with, it's like when I was a kid and playing music and putting out my own records and all that stuff, you get to a point where you just can't get any better at what you do, um, without committing to one thing. So there was a point where I could have definitely just started a label and
Yeah.
and run a label. There was a point where I could have just been whatever. And I chose, I mean, my favorite thing in the world is to make songs and go on tour. So I chose that. Now I feel like at this point with like the podcast stuff, I can't do it any bigger or better than I do it. And I'm really interested to see where it can go. So I think now I'm sort of opening myself to like, okay, I'll start taking these meetings with companies that do this or people that do this or whatever, because I want to keep doing. I love talking to people, and
Yeah.
I love being on that side of the microphone so much, um, that I want to just keep doing it. And I want to find. I love when you start something and you can't see the end of it. That's
Mhm.
like one of my favorite things in life. So I just am kind of looking for that. I think with my own stuff, I can see the end of it, and I can
Sure.
sort of see like where it maxes out time wise and commitment. And like, Friday Beers was awesome when everybody was home.
Yeah.
And then I remember the day where I was like texting friends and people were like, oh shit, I'm on the road. 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 I'm like, oh, we're back. Okay.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess I'll go on tour because everybody's on the road. Like, I remember when it changed, and which was awesome because thank God we got to go back and play on
Sure.
stages, which was amazing. But it did kill Friday Beers.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden someone's like, oh, I can't do it Friday, I could do it Wednesday. And I'm like, nah, we're done. We're just going to evolve this into something else. And that's when I started getting into the filming with a buddy of mine. And that's fun, but it's really hard to, being in El Paso, it's like I have to wait for somebody to come through town. And then I
Yeah.
also have to be in town. And then also I have to have all of my pro bono crew in town. Like, if you're not doing it for money, it's really difficult to sort of, that stuff's expensive. I don't think people
It is.
realize like what a camera guy runs if he actually charged you or she charged you. It's an unpleasant number. Good for
Yeah.
them. But
I have an editor who works on both channels, and he, I pay him, but
Hmm.
I fund my endeavors with the comics and the business that I have on the side, but
Yeah.
or my main business, but I do all this myself. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sending out messages, I'm trying to get
Sure.
to people, but like you said, it's so gratifying to have conversations with people when you realize that it's natural. Like your content swap with Jeremy, you
Yeah.
being on First Ever and him being on
Yeah.
Better Heroes, like it was great. It was like such a pleasure to listen to the both
Oh,
of
good
you
to hear.
and Jay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I'm excited for the future of that. And before we get going, okay, so no dates have been announced, but there's going to be some solo stuff and some Sparta stuff this year.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So we just yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a secret, and I don't know when this airs, but like
Next
the
week.
the porcelain stuff isn't done. So we know
Hmm.
that we sort of know that we want to kind of do that as much as we can realistically before a new record, because once a new record comes out, obviously all that stuff just gets put to bed. Probably forever. Like I think once is enough on this stuff. Like
Yeah.
I don't think there's a 25-year or whatever it is. I mean, I say that now, who knows, but I'm so interested in starting the next phase of my life.
Hmm.
And that's kind of what I've been focusing on with this record is how do I bridge the gap between Wiretap Scars and the self-titled record, right? That's like almost a 20-year time difference.
Yeah.
Um, at least, actually, it's more than 20 years. No, it's 20 years. But I think that's what I'm trying to do now is sort of find all of that reserved energy and that sort of like creativity and reach out to people that I've never reached out to before and reconnect with some old friends and sort of like take Sparta into the next phase.
Okay.
And we're consciously doing it. So there's going to be some like goodbyes. You know what I mean? There's some
Hmm.
stuff that's gotta stop so that there's space to do something new. And I'm working on this thing that should be out in a couple of weeks that sort of addresses all of that. And it's called Scenic Drive, and it's basically just like a love letter to my city and to the people that have supported us. And it's kind of like shot in the studio. It's acoustic. It's singing only Sparta songs, doing them kind of like in a new way. But also, it to me, it's just like a really soft bookend to this
Oh,
part of my
wow.
career. And I'm like in the middle of doing voiceover stuff right now, so I'm still working out what that message is, because I
Hmm.
do it and then I send it to like the team, and then they come back and they're like, "Wow, you sound like an asshole in this part." Okay, let me work on that. Because it's all of this stuff is a learning process, and it's learning
Yeah.
how again, like how to fail and get up and do it again. So, yeah, I look forward to the future. Um, I just want to play guitar and sing and tour and um, enjoy life. Right, life is to live. That's my
Yeah.
motto.
It's a great motto. And,
If you're not doing that, then what the fuck are you doing?
right. Get busy living.
Yep.
Or get busy dying.
Yep.
Well, I will put all the links for Sparta and the records, and the Patreon in the description below. But Jim, I so thankful that you were cool to do this, and
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
yeah, Kevin. I talked to Kevin Devine. And he's like, yeah, just
Mhm.
ask him on Patreon. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And so he says hi, and I hopefully I missed the porcelain show because I was in Japan when you were in the Northwest, and then I got sick in Orlando. So maybe a Tacoma show again. I don't know, but
Yeah. Maybe.
yeah, I don't know. But either way, I'll come see you on the tour, no matter where you play, because I gotta get my fix.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really
Um,
it's really fun playing this record. It's really fun. Yeah, I've
yeah,
enjoyed it. I'm definitely not ready to put it down. I mean, before we go, like the whole thing is
mhm,
I wanted to do like 10 shows tops. And
yeah,
then that turned into 16. And then I was like, I want to do more. Like it's really fun. I don't want to, I think we did like 70 something shows on the Wiretap tour, and
yeah.
that's too much. So now I know
Well,
finding the sweet spot.
balance is always a key thing for everything, for
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, for
So,
sure. Awesome.
all
Well,
right, let
thank you
me
so much for having me.
Thanks for watching. I had a blast talking to Jim, and it won't be the last time. You can catch him on tour at some point this year, whether it's with Sparta or whether it's solo, doing a tour. Follow him on all the socials because that's where you're going to find all that information. Definitely give some of those old Sparta records a listen, as well as At the Drive-In, Sleepercar, and Jim's solo stuff. You could find it all on everywhere you listen to music these days. And for my part, please hit the like button if you're watching this on YouTube. Drop a comment down below or leave a comment on Spotify, which you can do now. You can also scroll up to the top, leave a review on Apple. Anything that helps me get a little bit more in the algorithm for people so people can watch these interviews. I am definitely excited to bring you a couple more in the next couple weeks. So stay tuned for that and keep on keeping on, all right? See you soon.